all of these manifestations are all of the different energies of the Lord, and a particular incarnation facilitates these particular activities of the Lord in different categories. But we have to understand they're all equally powerful. Can you hear me?
Yes, Marge.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of things popping up on the screen.
I apologize, Marge. I was trying to see if I could live stream and I had issues, and now it finally worked after 10 minutes. So I wanted to shoot your video onto YouTube. I apologize, Marge.
No need to apologize. So we can understand that although Vishnu is the manifestation of Krishna, sometimes the materialists, when they delve into these spiritual topics, they get everything wrong. Most of the times they're wrong. In fact, not most of the times, they're always wrong. And one of the errors that they make is they say that Krishna is either the 9th or the 14th incarnation of Vishnu. They put Vishnu as the supreme and Krishna as a manifestation. That's because they can't understand Krishna, nor do they have the qualifications to understand Krishna. Because Krishna appears in his own initial transcendental form as Krishna in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And he has 2 arms. So they see the 4-armed Vishnu or the 4-armed Narayan as being superior to the 2-armed Krishna. And because Krishna acts more like an ordinary person, where the Vishnu manifestations do the work of maintenance of the material energy and perform some of the activities of creation also in the higher realms. And so therefore they cannot connect Krishna as being the supreme. And of course, because they have a full fund of knowledge and they use their speculation. I was listening to Srila Prabhupada today, and he was really, blasting, with both barrels today. This particular lecture I was listening, all the scientists and the religionists and the academics who think they have an understanding of whatever their background or the occupation is. But Prabhupada basically says they're all stupid. And that's the word he kept using over and over again. They're stupid. Because, first of all, they have no right to go into the area of spirituality because they don't have the qualifications to go into it. Just like if you want to go to school, you can't just start with the higher grades. You just can't sit into the more advanced studies and think, well, this is where I want to really be, because you have no qualifications to understand the principles that set the foundation for your understanding of the higher studies. You have to start from the beginning and then work your way up. But they just want to jump into areas that is none of their business. And then they make their speculations and then the conclusions. And as Paula said, they're stupid. They're always wrong because they have no adhikari. And so that is fashionable in today's, that people speak about spirituality as if they have some understanding. But only those who are practicing devotional service can have this proper understanding. It's a closed program. One who is not engaged in devotional service cannot understand Krishna, nor can they understand the devotees who are executing devotional service, nor can they even understand the basic principles of it. So this is very fashionable. And you see here now, Sukadeva Goswami is he's in a discussion because there was a conjectural argument that that appears earlier in the series of verses. How could Sukadeva Goswami make that statement that Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead based on the verses mentioned in the Bhagavad? But he, because he is self-realized, he understands the position of Krishna in relationship to all of the other manifestations of the Godhead. And of course, scripture is also there. Ishwara Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karma Karma. This verse that's stated in the first verse of the three issue Upanishads, from the Brahma Samhita, it is the foundation for all understandings of Krishna. Also, there are many other verses that establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Arjuna, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Param Dharma, Param Brahma, Param Dharma, Pavitram Idam Uttamam, Navyaksatam Dharmam, Susuktam Karma. He says that you are the Supreme Brahman, you are the original source, you are the personality of God. You are original, inexhaustible. So we hear, and then in order to confirm that, he also illustrates that Anarada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas are saying the same thing. Therefore, there is no doubt of your position as the original personality of Godhead. So it's important to understand this because you'll find that it's very difficult to understand Krishna because Krishna appears to be an ordinary person when he performs his leelas, either in the spiritual world or in the material world. And therefore, they relegate him to a lesser position, or they even consider him to be fictitious or mythological. But here it's clear. And one of the offenses that we recite daily in the list of 10 offenses to the holy name is to consider Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva to be equal to or independent of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is a manifestation of Krishna. So Shiva and Brahma are devas. And although they are worshipped, especially Lord Shiva, throughout the Vedic scheme for worship, there are a lot of Shiva bhaktas, not too many Brahman bhaktas, because Brahma is not worshipped practically nowhere in India or anywhere. The only place he's worshipped is one place called Pushkar, somewhere in, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's in northern India. Yeah, so people are very much inclined to worship the demigods and place the demigods on the same level as the Supreme Lord. Yata pata, tata pata, I'm okay, you're okay. All the worshipful deities are on the same level. And sometimes it becomes a farce where people place ordinary living beings who either are family members or someone who is an exalted personality on fearlessness. They also put them on the same level as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. But in order to understand the process of bhakti and the goal of bhakti, one has to understand the relationship between Krishna and all of the other manifestations. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, number 65, the Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, has illustrated that the devotees in this ISKCON movement are worshipful of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Although we can honor, respect, and also to some degree, worship the other incarnations of the Lord. Krishna is the focus of our devotional practice. Why? Because we are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, and also taught devotion to Krishna in the form of this process of Harinam Sankirtan, which is the Yuga Dharma in this age. So in order to clarify the principle of proper devotion, we have to understand the relationship between Krishna and all of the other manifestations of Lord. Now there are Ram Bhaktas, there are the Shringa Bhaktas, there are Ram Bhaktas, there are Vishnu Bhaktas, Narayan Bhaktas, all of these persons, they worship that same personality of Godhead in different forms. So that is also devotional service. But those who follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and adhere to his, are devotees of Krishna. And that is mentioned in one verse, that everything centers around Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the glorification of Krishna in Sri Vrindavan Dham as the conclusion of Bhagavatam, and illustrating the highest form of worship, the highest form of spiritual attainment. And so these verses are very important to help establish Krishna distinct from all of the other manifestations, both demigods and other forms of the personality of Godhead. And therefore, our worship goes to Krishna. Although he manifests himself in different forms, for the purpose of both worship and for the purpose of function. The Russia chapter, the highest senior case for Baba Diyan, Bhakti and Jal. All his other manifestations of incarnation are getting their source of power because they are non-different than Krishna, but yet at the same time different for the sake of function. Okay, so I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for such a nice class, and thank you for sharing the different points in this verse. I would like to ask the voice, if any questions, any clarification, any thoughts, please raise your hand so that we can call upon you, in order and not miss anybody. Maharaj, I'm assuming that you have up until another 15 more minutes, Maharaj, or so?
Yeah, it's about it's on the half-hour mark now.
Oh, cool. Okay. Maharaj, I have a question while others are thinking. As you were mentioning, there are around.
Stop the shares.
Okay, sure, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Okay. Maharaj, when you were sharing about there are Ram Bhaktas and there are Nrsimha Bhaktas, there are Vishnu Bhaktas. So as practicing devotees of Krishna consciousness of ISKCON, is our duty or our mood should be to appreciate the other bhaktas, or should we be trying to pull them, quote unquote, towards being a Krishna bhakta?
No, we should appreciate that. Lord Chaitanya, he tested Murari Gupta, who is a Ram Bhakta, just to show his devotion to Ram. He was teasing him that actually Ram is very nice, but Krishna's pastimes are even nicer. So you should actually worship Krishna. And he did that just to glorify Murari Gupta's love for Lord Ramachandra. And Murari Gupta took very seriously what Lord Chaitanya had encouraged him to do, but he couldn't give up his devotion to Ram. And so he was quite distressed. And the next day, after struggling all night with the idea of giving up Ram, he came and he admitted that, I can't give up my Raghupati. And he was in quite an emotional state. The Lord was very pleased just to see his devotion to Ram. And he took a piece of Gopi Chandan and he wrote on his head, Ramdas. So the Lord wanted to show, that. And the original commentator for Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Srihar Swami, is a devotee of Sringadevi. That's the day. Although he is the commentator where all other commentators get their understanding. So, and he's in the Sringa Bhakta, and that's clear. You'll find that if you read I think it's the 87th chapter of the 10th canto, Prayers by the Personified Vedas. As the verses go on, which is just a series of prayers to Lord Krishna, at the end, he makes statements on each of the verse practically in glorification of Lord Nrsimhadev. So, and of course, that's also been corroborated by great souls. He is a Nrsimha Bhakta. And there are Ram Bhaktas, Nrsimha Bhaktas. There are Bhaktas of, when you say Ram and Nrsimha, that's Narayan. So they're Narayan Bhaktas ultimately.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
And then there are devotees who are exclusively devoted to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
And they will be called Gauranga Bhaktas, Maharaj? I'm just guessing.
I guess that would be applicable for Bodhananda Saraswati. He doesn't want to know about any other incarnation except Mahaprabhu. He's quite adamant about that, and he speaks in a very uses strong words, rejecting any other form of worship.
That name just popped in my head. I said, probably it's Gauranga Bhaktas. I don't know. Thank you, Maharaj. Any questions from devotees? Any clarification? And if you could please turn your video on. I'm just making this request on behalf of Chandramai Swami, who's made that request many times. So I would like to ask devotees if you could please turn your video on. That would be really nice. There is a question in the, okay, Sri Devi is going to write a question because she said that she has poor internet connection in India. So she's going to type a question. Any questions from devotees? Any, while we're waiting for this question to come through chat. Let me see here. Marj, I have another question, and that is, we know that there is misconception, lack of a better word, I think, that Krishna is the 14th or 15th, 20, sorry, avatar. But if we look at the Goloka chart, Maharaj, like I think it's very common now, which is really, really nice, that Krishna is way on the top, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet I come across situations where they still can accept it. Like, even though they see the Goloka chart, they still can accept it. Why is that so, Maharaj?
Prabhupada would say dog obstinacy. You chase a dog away and he still comes back.
That's what it is.
This stubbornness, it becomes obvious, and the scriptures illustrate over and over again the position of Krishna as superior to all of the manifestations of the Godhead. And this verse that we're discussing, that is Ete Cham Sam Kalam Tum Sam Krishna's two Bhagavan Swayam, is what is called the verse that establishes the principles of what is the actual goal of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is to worship Sri Krishna and Sri Vrindavan Dham.
Maharaj, you want me to pull up the verse, Maharaj?
Well, 1:328. Yeah.
1:328? Okay. Let me do that. Srimad
Well,
Bhagavatam.
verse is called Paribhasa Sutra, which
Oh,
that verse that establishes the meaning of the particular text that's found in. So each text, each spiritual text has a Paribhasa Sutra.
Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 28. Okay. I'm going to share that now, Maharaj.
Yeah, it's quite,
Is this it, Maharaj?
well, this, no, that's 3, 26,
26? Okay.
28 is the one you want.
Oops, I went too fast.
You're going backwards.
Yeah, I don't know why this thing went back. I'm trying to do 26. Somehow it just skipped on me. This is 26.
We want 28.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. All of the above incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. The Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there's a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So here, Prabhupada says, first line, Sri Krishna, the personality, is distinguished from other incarnations. So he's not an incarnation. He's the source of the incarnation. Just like that verse that we read today, one candle lights all of the other candles. All of the other candles come from the original candle and have the same candle power. In the same way, all of the manifestations of the Godhead are equally powerful as the original one, but they just don't exhibit that power. So there's no need to in the particular role that they play. The Krishna exhibits that power. But when you read Nectar of Devotion, you also find that there are 4 characteristics or qualities that are exclusive to Sri Krishna, which no of the another ugly manifestations of God has had. His beautiful bodily features, surrounded by his devotees, his transcendental pastimes, and then one more mentioned next to the
Marge, there's a very nice question here by Mother Sri Devi. She's asking, would Christians, Muslims, Jews, etc., also be considered devotees?
yeah, but on a lesser level. A lesser level means that devotion is there in the hearts of all living entities, and one can have pure devotion from the Lord in any particular authorized path that is given. But the quality of the Vedic tradition, or you might say the Vaishnava tradition, which is more exclusive, is that the knowledge that centers around the personality of Godhead, and the knowledge that centers around the activities of devotional service are much more voluminous and in detail. But you can have a pure devotee who is a Christian or someone who is Islam if they're simply engaged in serving the Lord with love.
I hope that helped, Sri Devi. I'm trying to see her respond. She's not getting good connection where she's at. So I know that helped me. Thank you, Marge, for clarity. She says, yes, thank you. Thank you, Sri Devi, for asking that question. Any other questions from devotees? Any thoughts? I'm trying to be mindful of Marge's time because I know that he has to leave, but still I don't want to miss any devotees. If you have any questions, so please, if you have about 4 more minutes. if you have any questions, any comments, any clarification, any thoughts that's lingering in our heads, please do ask. Maharaj, it seems that there's no question. Would you like to end your class so that you could go to your next appointment, Maharaj, or would you like to chat around?
Yeah, I think I have to stop because time is really short, but
That's
I'll
fine.
say if there's questions, but I don't want to add anything that we, not part of the program right now.
Doesn't
Yeah. If
it doesn't
anybody
appear
has
that there's a question, Maharaj?
Okay.
Wait, there's something from Sri Devi. What'd she say? In interfaith programs. Okay, I think she's typing something. I think she's still typing. She just has. Okay, she says in interfaith programs, what should our attitude be towards them? That's a big question, Marge, because I think that's something that I would ask too. Thank you, Sri Devi, for asking that question.
Well, if you're Srila Prabhupada, it's one way. If you're not Srila Prabhupada, it's another way. So, I would suggest that you humbly, respectfully present your teachings so everyone can understand without presenting it in a challenging or a critical mood. You know, we can speak according to Shastra. But in these interfaith situations, which I've done a lot of interfaith back in the 1990s, I did much. In fact, we even had interfaith conferences. I was directly involved in organizing them. I find that, you know, what goes on is that people like to present their particular doctrine, not so much about the personality of Godhead. That's what I found. People don't speak so much about God. They speak about the principles of the religion that they follow. And it's more like a lesser form of presentation. One of the things they liked about us in our interfaith, we did interfaith groups, programs with sometimes up to 30, 35 different other religious sects, because we were connected with the World Parliament of Religions, which is situated in Chicago, still is, which is a world body that correlates and also presents different interfaith programs around the world. So I was actively involved in that. But yeah, we have that. We also have it on film also. One of our devotees, Radha Sundari, she presented a nice presentation describing our process of bhakti as it leads to love of God. But one thing they liked about us was our prasadam. And I say that with great emphasis because every time we would have an upcoming huge conferences, which included everybody, they would commission us to cook. So yeah, we became popular because of the prasadam. So they liked that. And one time we had a little contention that they found that we offer our food to the Lord before we, and so the Muslims and the Jews took issue with that because the Muslims and Jews don't worship deities. You know, they're very much against the idea. They think all forms of Lord are idol worship. So they told us that if you prepare food It should not be offered to any of the, as they said it, idols. So we offered it to Prabhupada. So
That was a good move, Maharaj.
just to satisfy them, because they were investigating us. We became a little controversial. And in 2004, I was in Barcelona, Spain, and we had an interfaith conference there. And there were different panel discussions and representatives of different traditions. And some of our devotees entered there. But one of the things I remember clearly is on one panel discussion, there was a devotee from the Madhvacharya line, who was a Mudvite. And if you know Mudvites, one of their main principles is to establish the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate principle of worship. So they're very confrontational. So I was watching this one Mudvite smashing all of these other persons. And these other guys, there were some different groups, and they were getting upset. These are just friendly talks. We're just presenting our, and he didn't want to get into that. He just wanted to show that you guys are in Maya. So I was enjoying that part. We didn't take part in it directly, but that's the nature of the Mudvites. They're very, they want to establish that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a person. And they worship Krishna as Udabi Krishna, but mostly they worship Ram. So he was very vociferous, I use the word not voracious, vociferous, in presenting his arguments. And then one time there was Hindu night. We had Hindu night there. And all of the Hindu groups, so-called Hindu groups, came together. And the Mayavadis were there in full force, and they took over the stage. They immediately got up and conducted their Mayavadi presentation as the main principle. So I was there with Sri Damodar Goswami. And, Sri Damodar Goswami is a perfect gentleman, but he's also fixed Krishna worship. And, I was getting really angry listening to those Mayavadis speak. I was like, I was just like spitting fire, I couldn't take it anymore. Maharaj was really cool and calm. And finally, they let him speak. They wouldn't have nothing to do with me. So they let him speak. And he picked one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, two verses together. You can turn to that verse. I'll show it to you. It's first canto, second chapter. I think it's around verse 28, 1 to 28, somewhere around there. And he spoke on that verse very graciously and right to the point. I think it's 1 to 28. Yeah, Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Paramoka, Vasudeva Para Yoga, Vasudeva Para Kriya, Vasudeva Param Jnanam, Vasudeva Param Tapa, Vasudeva Paro Dharmo, Vasudeva Param Bhati. In the revealed scripture, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifices please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruit of activities are the reward of his supreme knowledge. All austerities are performed to know him. Religion is meant to love him. He is the supreme goal of life. So he spoke on that amidst all of these Mayavadis. He spoke so humbly and so graciously that I don't think they even got it. They were just, so they allowed him to speak. He spoke nicely on this verse, establishing Krishna as the supreme person of Godhead. And then when it came to the next part of the program, where they were going to allow us to come forward, so we came forward and we started doing kirtan. And as soon as we started kirtan, all of the Mayavadis left. They all disappeared. They think kirtan.
Wow.
Yeah, because some kind of sentimental.
Marsh, why did they leave? They didn't appreciate it, or did they were against it or something?
They think, Mayavadis was just sitting there with, with long faces speaking philosophy. That's all we do. More like philosophy, not philosophy.
That's a question, Prabhu. I don't have your name. I'm sorry, Prabhu, but please you can go ahead and ask a question, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Devananda Pandit Das. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, dear Gurudeva, all glories to the assembled devotees. You mentioned about prasadam. Some time ago, I saw one video in social media where devotees are sharing prasadam in Ukraine for hungry people. And that video was made in such funny way, like Charlie Chaplin movies, quickly moving, funny music. I found this video disrespectful for prasadam and for people whom this prasadam is sharing. Maybe this is critical mood of mine. May we disrespect prasadam at all?
Well, I don't know anything about the video, so I can't really say anything.
No, this was made in a funny way, like Charlie Chaplin movies, quickly moving, funny music.
I'd have to see what you're saying before I can understand. I don't want to say anything unless I know what I'm speaking about.
Okay, thank you.
I can't really say.
Well, maybe some general principles you can share with us. Some general principles about sharing prasadam, about respect for prasadam when we are sharing it. Respect for people whom we are sharing it.
Prasadam is Krishna. And Prasadam is preaching also. Prasadam is showing Krishna's mercy. Yeah, just like on Saturday, coming up, we're doing a walk here in London. It's a 10-mile walk, and it's in order to raise money for one group of devotees who also went to the Ukraine. That was the devotees from London, headed by Parasaram. And Parasaram feeds 5,000 people a day in London. And now the demand is up to 20,000. So we need to raise money in order to get him a bigger facility. So this is the purpose of the walk. So many devotees are coming out to support this, and we're also trying to get a new building. So yeah, so all the devotees are supporting this whole program of prasadam distribution, because it is one of the most important part of our preaching. As Prabhupada said, we should distribute prasadam within 10 miles radius of each and every temple. So, and then Prabhupada, before he departed the planet, he mentioned many times that Harinam and Krishna Prasadam is the two powerful weapons by which we can change the hearts of the conditioned souls in this age. Yeah. So Prasadam should not be minimized. Speaking of Prasadam, I think I gotta go because I'm running out of time.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. Thank you to all the devotees for joining us. Vancha kraptubhyascha, kripasindovevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki. His Holiness Chandramali Swami ki.
Jai.
Thank you so much for fitting us in somehow in your busy schedule, March. Really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. My good fortune to be able to be with.
And have a very nice Prashadam, Maharaj.
Yeah, well, that's the preliminary. I got to go to the dentist.
Thank you, Maharaj. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.